Every major spiritual tradition on Earth figured out the same trick, independently, thousands of years apart: stop eating. The specifics vary: 40 days in the desert, Ramadan's dawn-to-dusk discipline, the Hindu practice of Ekadashi every 11 days, but the instruction is identical. And the reason they all landed on the same answer has less to do with willpower than with what your body does when the food stops coming. When you eat a meal, your digestive system demands roughly 65% of your blood flow. Your gut becomes the priority. Everything else, including the higher-order thinking that makes you feel like you, gets the leftovers. For most of human history, that trade-off made sense. Digestion keeps you alive. Contemplation can wait until the belly is full. But something shifts when the belly stays empty on purpose. Around the 12 to 16 hour mark of a fast, your body switches fuel sources. Glucose reserves run dry. Your liver starts converting stored fat into ketone bodies, and those ketones cross the blood-brain barrier with unusual efficiency. Your brain, running on this alternative fuel, enters a state that researchers have measured with EEG equipment: increased alpha wave activity. That same brainwave pattern shows up during deep meditation, during flow states, during moments people describe as feeling connected to something larger. So when a monk in 13th century Japan reported visions after days of fasting, and a Christian mystic in medieval Germany described the same luminous clarity after her own fast, they were describing a shared neurological event. The chemistry was doing what the chemistry does, but the brain chemistry is only the entrance. What happens deeper is stranger. Your body, during extended fasting, triggers a process called autophagy. The word comes from Greek. It means self-eating. Your cells begin breaking down their own damaged components, recycling old proteins, clearing out molecular debris that accumulates during normal metabolism. Think of it as your body running a deep cleaning cycle that only activates when there's no new food to process. Yoshinori Ohsumi won the Nobel Prize in 2016 for mapping the mechanisms behind it. The cleaning extends to the brain. Damaged mitochondria get recycled. Misfolded proteins, the kind linked to cognitive decline, get tagged for removal. Your neurons, stripped of their usual glucose bath, become more sensitive to smaller signals. The volume on everything gets turned up, colors look different to people in deep fasts, sounds carry more texture. The threshold for what registers as meaningful drops dramatically. Monks knew this centuries before anyone owned a microscope. They just used different language for it, and this heightened sensitivity sets the stage for something even more difficult to measure. When you fast, you remove the most reliable source of comfort most humans have. Food is the first reward circuit that ever fired in your brain. Before you understood language, before you could walk, the sensation of hunger followed by feeding was already training your dopamine system. Every meal you eat reactivates that ancient loop: comfort, satisfaction, relief. Remove it deliberately, and you're left sitting with the raw signal your body sends when its oldest expectation goes unmet. That signal is uncomfortable. Genuinely, physically uncomfortable. Your stomach tightens, your attention narrows. Irritability spikes in the first few hours. And then, if you stay with it, something releases. The Sufi tradition calls this state fana, a dissolution of the ego's usual grip. Buddhist practitioners describe it as a thinning of the barrier between self and everything else. Psychologists studying sensory deprivation have documented a similar phenomenon. When you remove a dominant input, the brain amplifies everything that remains. Fasting is sensory deprivation for your reward system. You pull the loudest signal out of the mix, and suddenly you can hear the quieter ones. This is where the spiritual reports start clustering: the feeling of presence, unusual emotional clarity, a sense of being porous, as if the boundary between inner experience and outer world has become less rigid. These descriptions repeat across traditions that had zero contact with each other. So why does hunger specifically produce this effect when other forms of discomfort, cold exposure, sleep deprivation, physical pain, tend to narrow awareness rather than expand it? The answer may live in the evolutionary timeline. Humans spent most of their existence cycling between fed and fasted states. A hunt might take days. Gathering required long walks on empty stomachs. The body adapted to perform cognitive tasks with sharper precision during food scarcity, because that's exactly when sharp thinking mattered most. You needed to track, to strategize, to read the landscape with total attention. The brain didn't shut down during fasts, it sharpened. The fog lifts precisely when survival demands clarity. The spiritual traditions built entire architectures around this biological response. Fasting before prayer, fasting before vision quests, fasting before receiving prophecy. The instructions always carry the same implicit understanding. You must be empty before you can be filled. The metaphor works because the biology works first. But here's where a skeptic would push back, and fairly. If fasting just changes brain chemistry, then the spiritual experience is reducible to ketones and alpha waves. The visions are hallucinations. The clarity is a metabolic side effect. The whole thing collapses into biology wearing a costume. That critique holds weight until you look at what the fasting practitioners actually report versus what pure neurological disruption produces. Sleep deprivation also changes brain chemistry. So does high fever. So do certain toxins. Those states produce confusion, paranoia, fragmented thinking. Fasting produces the opposite: integration, a sense that scattered pieces are coming together. The content of the experience trends toward coherence, toward meaning-making, toward what people across centuries have called wisdom. The direction matters. Chemistry can explain the door opening. It struggles to explain what's on the other side. The Islamic tradition captures this tension with precision. Ramadan's fast is mandated between dawn and sunset, a structured cycle, a rhythm. The practitioner eats before dawn, abstains through the day's heat, breaks the fast at dusk. The cycle repeats for a full lunar month. By the final week, practitioners consistently describe a shift in how they experience time. The hours stop dragging. Hunger becomes background noise. Something in the daily rhythm recalibrates their relationship to desire itself. That recalibration is the part that outlasts the fast. When you spend 30 consecutive days watching your cravings rise, peak, and dissolve without acting on them, you learn something about the architecture of wanting. Desire has a lifespan. It surges, it insists, it swears it will never fade. Then it fades, every single time. Watching that cycle repeat day after day without intervening, that's the real training. The hunger was just the curriculum. Christian mystics in the Desert Father tradition pushed further. Some fasted for weeks, reducing intake to bread and water or less. Their writings describe stages: early agitation giving way to calm, calm giving way to a period of acute sadness, and then something they called the opening. A state where prayer stopped feeling like talking to a wall and started feeling like a conversation. Whether you interpret that theologically or psychologically, the phenomenology is consistent across hundreds of independent accounts spanning 4 centuries. The Hindu tradition approaches fasting with a different framework, but reaches the same destination. Upavasa, the Sanskrit term for fasting, translates literally as sitting near the divine. The fast creates proximity through absence. You empty the vessel so it can be filled with something other than the usual contents. The logic is architectural. You can't pour water into a cup that's already full. And this is where the modern resurgence of fasting gets interesting. Millions of people now practice intermittent fasting for metabolic health, weight management, longevity. The physiological benefits are well documented, but a surprising number of them report side effects they didn't expect: heightened emotional sensitivity, increased dream vividness, moments of unexpected peace during the fasting window. They came for the body. Something else showed up uninvited. They're accidentally stepping into the same doorway that monks and mystics have used for millennia. The mechanism doesn't care about your intention. Skip enough meals, and the brain shifts gears regardless of whether you're seeking God or seeking abs. Which raises a question that's harder to dismiss than it first appears. If spiritual experience can be triggered by a simple metabolic switch, one that evolution built into every human body, then access to transcendence was never reserved for the devout. It was built into the hardware. The traditions didn't invent the experience. They noticed it, mapped it, and built disciplines around it so it could be accessed reliably rather than stumbled into by accident. Your body already knows how to do this. It's been doing it for 200,000 years, every time food ran scarce and the brain needed to see further, think clearer, Reach beyond the immediate. The mystics just wrote down the instructions. The cup has been empty before. You remember what filled it.